On March 12, 1946, four men, Fank Salatti, Gabor V, Koli Beri, and Joseph Gira, were executed in Budapest. They had been condemned for war crimes and crimes against humanity. These men were senior members of the Arrow Cross Party, a far-right and ultra-nationalist Hungarian political group. Their brutal actions during their time in power made them widely despised. The executions were carried out in public, with thousands of onlookers gathering to witness the event. The Arrow Cross Party, which was led by Salatti, was notorious for its extreme nationalist and fascist ideologies, closely aligned with those of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. The Arrow Cross Party rose to prominence during a tumultuous period in Hungarian history. They held power from October 15, 1944 to March 28, 1945. Salatti, who was appointed leader while imprisoned, oversaw a regime characterized by brutal repression and violence. The party's policies led to the mass deportation of Hungarian Jews and other targeted groups to concentration camps. During their rule, the regime was responsible for the deportation of thousands of people, many of whom were murdered in gas chambers. Their reign of terror was marked by extreme brutality. The Arrow Cross Party's execution squads were responsible for the deaths of around 38,000 Hungarian Jews. They collaborated with Adolf Eichmann and other Nazi officials to continue the deportations, resulting in the transportation of approximately 880,000 individuals to death camps. The Soviet Red Army began its siege of Budapest in December 1944, leading to increased violence within the city. The Arrow Cross members intensified their brutal actions, executing many people within Budapest, including patients in Jewish hospitals and women and children in Jewish ghettos. As the Soviet forces closed in, many members of the Arrow Cross government attempted to flee to save their lives. Fank Salatti, the leader of Hungary, was among those who escaped Budapest in December 1944. He fled with the Hungarian royal crown, seeking refuge in Germany. Salatti's hope was that Germany would provide him with protection and security. Despite his efforts, he was eventually captured by American forces and brought back to Hungary to face justice. His escape to Germany and subsequent capture highlighted the desperate measures taken by the Arrow Cross leadership to evade responsibility for their actions. Following Salatti's capture, the remaining senior members of the Arrow Cross Party were also brought to trial. Among them was Gabor V, who served as the Minister of the Interior. During his tenure, Koli was instrumental in coordinating with high-ranking SS officials, including Adolf Eichmann, to facilitate the mass deportations of Hungarian Jews to concentration camps. Koli's role in the Arrow Cross Party's administration made him a key figure in the implementation of their brutal policies. His involvement in these atrocities was a significant factor in his eventual conviction. Koli Beri, another prominent figure, was a highly experienced military leader who had served in both World Wars. During the Arrow Cross regime, he was appointed to command the 3rd and 1st Armies. His military strategies, however, proved disastrous when he faced defeat at the hands of the Red Army. Despite his military setbacks, Beri was brought back into the fold by Salatti, who relied on him for military advice. Beri was appointed Minister of Defense, though his power was limited under German occupation. His capture by the American forces marked the end of his role in the Arrow Cross government. Joseph Gira, the 4th member tried, was less well known but equally culpable. A former children's doctor, Gira had been involved in organizing various Arrow Cross events and meetings. His role in the party extended to being a member of the Regent Council, where he played a part in the administration's policies. Gira's involvement in the party's operations and his contributions to their propaganda efforts were also scrutinized during the trial. All four men faced charges of treason, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Their trials were held before the People's Tribunal in Budapest, the very courts that had been used to condemn their enemies during their time in power. The tribunal was tasked with delivering justice for the myriad atrocities committed under the Arrow Cross regime. The evidence presented against the accused detailed their involvement in orchestrating and executing numerous acts of violence and repression. Their trials were a critical part of Hungary's effort to address the crimes committed during the Arrow Cross Party's rule. The proceedings were conducted with a focus on ensuring that those responsible for such severe human rights violations were held accountable. The trials were not just about individual culpability, but also served as a means to address the broader impact of the regime's actions on Hungarian society and its victims. The final judgment delivered by the tribunal was decisive. All 4 men were sentenced to death for their roles in the horrors inflicted by the Arrow Cross Party. Their executions were carried out with precision, using a method known as pole hanging. This method, also referred to as the Austrian gallows or strangling gallows, involved a detailed process designed to ensure a swift death. The condemned were suspended from a tall pole with a noose around their necks, and the executioner, working with an assistant, ensured the process was carried out effectively. On the day of the executions, March 12, 1946, the atmosphere in Budapest was charged with a mix of anticipation and grim satisfaction. The 4 men, Salatti, Koli, Beri, and Gira, were brought out one by one in front of the Budapest Academy of Music, a location chosen for its public visibility. As they were escorted by police, the crowds gathered in large numbers, eager to witness the end of the figures they held responsible for such widespread suffering. The method of execution employed was pole hanging, a technique known for its complexity compared to traditional hanging methods. Each man was taken to the execution post, which was approximately 3 meters tall. A rope was initially secured around their feet, then the condemned were hoisted into the air by a chest sling placed under their armpits. The noose was then looped around their necks and fastened to a hook at the top of the pole. The process was meticulously executed. The executioner, assisted by a colleague, stood on a platform and prepared the condemned for their final moments. The executioner's role was to ensure the death was quick and effective. This involved releasing the chest sling, causing the prisoner to drop a short distance. The executioner would then manually adjust the condemned's head and neck to hasten death. This method, while designed to be swift, required precise execution to be effective. The executions were carried out sequentially, not simultaneously, which meant each man had to wait while the others were executed. The crowds observed the process closely, though the executioner covered the heads of the men with white caps to prevent spectators from witnessing their final moments in detail. After each execution, the bodies were left on display for a short period before being removed. The size of the crowd that day was massive, with people even hanging out of windows to get a glimpse of the proceedings. For many in Budapest, these executions represented justice for the atrocities committed by the Arrow Cross Party. The public spectacle of the executions was intended to provide a sense of closure and retribution for the suffering inflicted during the party's brief but violent rule. The execution of these 4 men marked the end of a chapter in Hungary's troubled history during World War II. It was a stark reminder of the violence and extremism that had plagued the country, and a symbolic act of retribution for the numerous crimes committed under the Arrow Cross regime. Their deaths were a final act of justice in a period of reckoning for Hungary and its role in the broader conflict. If you enjoyed this detailed look into history, please consider subscribing to our channel for more in-depth content. Your support helps us continue producing these videos. If you'd like to support us further, we also accept cryptocurrency donations. You can find our address in the description below. Thank you for your continued support.